Hey guys, it's Toniko Pantoja, and I've worked primarily as a story artist in the animation industry for over 10 years now. The title of story artist is more common in feature film, whereas in TV, we're known as storyboard artists. But I feel like story artist is a great umbrella term because not only do we do storyboards, but sometimes we explore ideas for gags, explore story beats for production, explore the filmmaking language for production. So some of these things are outside the realm of just storyboarding a sequence for a production. Not only do I storyboard for my job, but I also storyboard for my independent productions. Now, I personally love storyboarding because it allows me to explore my filmmaking language, the storytelling aspect of it, and there's just so much more that I can learn in the realm of storyboarding. Like drawing, the path of learning is endless. So the thing I want to talk about is a practice that I usually do to keep my storytelling skills up, my storyboarding skills intact, and something that I would recommend for both an experienced and a newly inexperienced storyboard artist or story artist. So I love using the iPad. It's light, I can work while I go to a normal cafe, I can sketch, I can paint, I can even animate on the iPad. Now on the iPad, I made myself a template, 4x4 squares with the aspect ratio of 16:9, a standard HD ratio. Now you can choose whatever aspect ratio you want to utilize, whether it's 4:3, whether it's CinemaScope, whether they're just squares, or whether they're just some weird aspect ratio. You can do this on the iPad or on your computer or even on a sketchbook traditional style. And you're going to want to make multiple copies of this template just so that you have something to work on already. Now the reason why I make these templates is because there's a lot of multiple case usage for it. I use it to plan my boards, to do rough thumbnails, or explore different compositions, whether I have ideas in my head. Sometimes I'll just watch a TV show, whether it's live action, whether it's animated, I'll just study whatever I see on the screen. And sometimes I'll just do this while I'm watching the production. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I seem to pay attention more to the film when I'm drawing and studying the film. So as I scroll through my iPad, I have a lot of files using this template. Different storyboards, different thumbnails, different ideas. You can tell that I've been doing this a lot. And I just want to talk about this and how this has helped me in my journey in storyboarding. Now, here's something that's important. A lot of people tend to think that storyboards are these super polished, super animated products that are just dubbed as storyboards. Storyboards are just the panels by itself, and animatic is a storyboard put in timing and in a video. But the core of storyboarding is still the old-fashioned way, in my opinion. These non-animated, small, loose drawings in single panels. This is the core of storyboarding. If you decide to fully animate stuff later down the line, at least you have a solid foundation of storyboarding. And if you're working as a storyboard artist, it's required to work like this because you want to show your client or your boss the ideas while it's still very loose and liquid before you commit to polishing and cleaning up. Now, as you can see in my thumbnails, I tend to draw very loose and simple. Sometimes my characters just look like lollipop heads. Sometimes I just have a horizon line just to determine whether it's a high angle or low angle shot. Overall compositions, some arrows to indicate movement of the characters. So I thought I was going to talk more about thumbnailing for storyboarding and how I think about it, but I think that deserves a video of its own. So the thing is that sometimes I'll have a spark of inspiration or an idea that I just want to explore very quickly, like just put it down on paper. Sometimes I'll just write these things down in words, but in some cases, I'll just thumbnail the idea down. So as you can see in these storyboards, I'm kind of thinking about the next Dog Bros short. And I'm just thinking about the visuals that play in my head and just translating it into these tiny thumbnails to see if it's a project that I can take from my brain and my imagination and put it down into something that I can visually see. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you guys write, sometimes you're just staring at a blank piece of paper, not knowing what to put down, and you're basically burned out without doing any work. It's kind of the same thing here, where I'm kind of fighting with myself of whether the shot choices I have is right, whether it's the best way to execute it, or what's the best way to execute it. I have to constantly remind myself that that stuff doesn't matter. Just put it down for now and revisit it later if you want to relook at it again. So to me, it's kind of a similar experience when I write things from scratch. Now again, something that I tend to do is studies, whether it's film studies, show studies, animation studies. In most cases, I do it in this template that I made. Now, when I study film, the results I get from my studies is often different based on the circumstances. So when I spend more time on a single frame from a production, I tend to look at the overall composition. I tend to look at the set, the lighting, and see if I can capture all of that in loose thumbnail. Because I think elements like tone, lighting, shadows, character posing, and composition actually contribute to the storytelling. Some of my studies from Pulp Fiction and Sopranos, I gave myself more time to study these frames. However, there are times where I'm drawing while watching the thing that I'm studying. And because it's playing, the shots don't last super long. They only last for a few seconds, so I have to quickly capture that composition in a few lines. And what I have is these very crude drawings that sort of represent the film or media. And weirdly enough, I'm still paying attention to the thing that I'm watching. If you want to improve your filmmaking language, your shot composition and choices, this is a great way to do it. And the thing that I would recommend is when you're doing these studies, think about the context of the sequence or the scene. Like, what's happening in that sequence? What's the story behind it? What is the overall tone and emotions being processed by the characters? What is the scene trying to tell? And while you're thinking about that while doing these film studies, you're going to notice that there are certain choices in these shots that reflect that. So lately I've been doing studies of Severance while I'm watching it, and something that I noticed is there's a lot of compositions that feel either flat or claustrophobic. And sometimes you're going to notice some symbolic filmmaking language. So there's a lot of use of mirrors sometimes when the characters are talking. Like, the characters are talking, but the camera is more focused on the mirrors or the reflections of the characters. And there are shots where the character's like really squished in the side of the frame, being squished by the foreground element. Now, knowing the context and the plot of Severance and the themes of Severance, it makes sense. Something that I noticed while doing these studies while watching Severance is that there's a lot of shots and editing choices that I would never see myself use, but because I'm studying something like Severance, it's just expanding my filmmaking library. And if you want to expand your filmmaking library, this is a great way to do it. Just remember that when you're doing these studies, think about the sequence, what's happening in the sequence, how are the characters feeling, what's the point of the shot or the sequence. Now, I do remember that one of my past directors said that your storyboard thumbnails should look just like your film studies. I mean, it's a case-by-case scenario. It really depends. I don't really have a strong opinion about it. The only point is that it's clear, it gets the idea across, etc. Like, I like to block out lighting and shadow and tone shapes in my film studies, but I don't usually add tone in my storyboard thumbs. So if you're an experienced story artist or board artist, this is just going to sharpen your tools. But if you're a new, inexperienced board artist, think of this as an entryway to storyboarding. You're not trying to come up with really polished drawings, just something that's clear, small, and low commitment. If you're someone that wants to make little skits or short films, or short stories, short gags, short comics, think of each template as this constriction that you have to work with. Like, you could only tell this joke or this story within these 4x4 panels, or you can even half that. I had to do that with some projects of mine. And it's going to make you think more about the presentation, the storytelling aspect of it. So I think that's all I want to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Bye.
Interested in learning hand-drawn animation or learning how to finish an animated shot from beginning to end? Have a look at the store where you'll find the complete Introduction to 2D Animation video course, tutorials, and other resources. Learn classical animation approaches, drawing, lectures, techniques, and other process videos. Visit the store through the link in the description below.